Hello Squirtle Squad. I know I don't upload a lot, and my videos are usually kind of short in comparison, so this might catch some of you by surprise. However, I've had this idea in my head for a while now, so I thought, what the heck. Before quarantine started, I went over to a friend's house and tried out a game called Superhot VR. Now, many of you may have seen streamers such as Germa on Twitch playing it. This made me realize that I wanted to have an excuse to let my thoughts out somewhere, and perhaps for more than just this one game. I plan on making this into a series, and I hope some of you will join me along the way. For future episodes, I'll be spinning this wacky wheel here to decide what to do for the next video. So let's give it a whirl. Alrighty, BioShock it is. We'll be looking at BioShock 1 and 2 Remastered and BioShock Infinite. For now, let's get on to the video.
Super hot.
To start, the aesthetic this game uses emulates that of an old MS-DOS type. Very basic, and only having a few retro-style applications outside of superhot.exe itself. Even including a disconnected chat room that you can't interact with, but you can watch play out. The first time you launch Superhot, the game, you are greeted with a chat log directed towards the player character. Similarly to the group chat that I mentioned before, but as an individual direct message with a friend of yours. This character is the one that introduces you to superhot.exe, being one of the only characters in the game, and allows you to begin your delve into the world of Superhot. From here, you gain access to the main game, or the various apps previously mentioned. This is the start of what I would refer to as the first act of the game. As you can likely tell, I do have some things unlocked in these clips you're seeing, however I'm still playing the story. This game does not feature a New Game Plus like many others do, instead allowing you to re-experience the story from the beginning at any point by wiping your save without wiping your records and challenges. As for the game itself, once you launch superhot.exe, the simplistic menu we've become accustomed to suddenly melts away, and forms its own unique transition. From here, we're brought to what looks like a CRT screen on a faulty channel, which is the bridge between each level in the game from now on. The very first level begins with you holding a gun, having shot the man that stood before you. What's immediately obvious are the color choices: red for the enemies and bullet trails, black for the weapons, bullets, and fists themselves, and white for everything else. Your focus is drawn to what the game chooses to bring it to by diverging from the glaringly white background. The game tells you its first main mechanic right at the start. Time only moves when you move, lets you get right into it. From here, the gameplay itself is very simple. You find weapons and kill enemies, easy as that. However, the layouts of each individual level are so well done, playing this game can feel like playing Doom, just without the speed or carnage. Going through each level is kind of like solving a combat puzzle. I need to go here in order to avoid these shots, while also taking out enemies as efficiently as possible. When I say that this game is missing carnage, I mean that enemies don't burst into bloodbaths like in Doom. It's not to say that taking out enemies isn't satisfying, since when you kill them, they do seem to shatter like porcelain on contact, as do you. This game has a one-hit, one-kill style of combat, meaning almost everything kills enemies and yourself. The only exceptions to this rule are fists, one hit kills you, but it takes 3 to kill an enemy, and throwable objects. Scattered throughout these levels are objects such as paperweights, phones, and of course, every weapon you can wield, which once thrown at enemies temporarily stuns them. However, enemies can't seem to throw them back at you. This game can seem pretty tight-lipped when it comes to its finer mechanics. One of these being a property of thrown objects. A thrown object is essentially a punch, and 3 in quick succession will also take out an enemy. This isn't very efficient, and it's nominally faster to just shoot or punch them yourselves, however it's worth mentioning as one of the many nuances the game expects you to discover. These first 5 levels essentially act as a tutorial for the base game, and lead you into the feel of movement and stop time. Once you reach the end, you're greeted to the first instance of what seems to be a glitch in the Matrix, and you get booted out. Once again, you get to talk to your old pal, he sends you the fix, and you dive right back in. Act 2 is the next set of 5 stages and ramps up quite thoroughly in terms of difficulty, putting you in increasingly greater danger with more enemies or less flexibility to take care of them from the start. This is also where they introduce shotguns and an automatic weapon into the mix, making it much easier for enemies to take you out, or vice versa. An important aspect of enemy behavior in this game is that they obsessively try to take you down, even at the expense of each other, which can be quite advantageous when multiple enemies are shooting at you in close quarters. At the end, you once again get booted out with the same strange glitch, but this time your friend tells you that the patch for it is password protected. Of course, in these menus, when you see me typing, it's not actually me typing, it is more like hacker typing you see in movies where they just slam their keyboard a lot. After enough tries, the Noob Master 69 seems to crack the code and you get to play more levels. After cracking the code, you play through one level and become hacked by the system, unable to tell your friend the password to the game, and having all of your messages altered to turn them away from you. It seems as if the system doesn't like you trying to get in. This is when the story really takes a turn, introducing the third character of the system that embodies Superhot itself. For the rest of this act, you mostly play through the levels as before, but with the system reminding you that this is not a game, and that you are not in control. My favorite part of this is the prison cell, where the system insults and commands you to do things, ranging from not allowing you to close the game, or exit to the menu, to then telling you to sit down and die. The system says to stop, but of course you continue. Later, you have to go visit yourself in your home playing the game. It's quite ominous, and there's no way to leave. You simply have to walk up to yourself and punch yourself, like you would a regular enemy. Once you do, you see this visceral red screen that kind of looks like the Illuminati triangle, and you're booted out. Afterwards, you're forced to have a conversation with the system itself. Once again, saying that Superhot is not a game, and to leave. Of course, normally, like any gamer would, you try to play the game anyway, but are rejected. And you're more or less forced to close the game. Once you do, the system ominously reminds you to keep your word as you quit out. Once you reboot the game, the startup is rather disjointed. This marks the final chapter of the game, with even more fourth wall breaking than before, and some additional challenge sprinkled on top. We're introduced to our final mechanic of the game, body swapping. Swapping has two main effects. It destroys the character you were previously inhabiting, and it throws the weapon of whichever character you choose to inhabit. These are very important factors in the active combat of this game, because it's effectively a free kill, but it also removes a weapon of choice from your purview. As the difficulty ramps up, and the story comes to a climax of sorts, we are greeted with the final level, which is also kind of like a boss fight. Essentially, you're trying to body swap into the core of the system, abandoning your physical body in the process and becoming part of Superhot. The challenge here is that it doesn't work first try, and you have to fight off waves of enemies while you wait for your swapping ability to recharge in a fairly open area. Thankfully, each time you swap into the core is its own checkpoint. And after the 5th time, that's it. Game over, baby. From here, you get to go on what's essentially a power trip, killing enemies just by looking at them from the pyramid. And finally, you have to finish your physical body off in order to truly link your mind to the system. Some anonymous type shit happens, and we're done with the main campaign. I love everything about this. The story is light but intriguing, the characters are vague and somewhat compelling, the gameplay is deceivingly simplistic yet so thoroughly enriched by the simple mechanics that it feels complex and satisfying. I give this game an 8 out of 10.
There's a little something for everyone.
But hey, we ain't done just yet. I've neglected to talk about the challenge modes and secrets in this game, so here we go. Each of the 25 main levels in the story mode, which you can now access at any time in any order by choosing levels on the main menu, hide terminals wherein you can enter and ask the system questions. These are fun little Easter eggs, providing some actually helpful context every now and again. However, a majority of them are just cryptic or sarcastic responses, not really worth the effort. It's a fun little way to revisit the old levels and not drive yourself insane. Speaking of driving yourself insane, the challenge and endless modes. Whoo boy, doesn't that put a smile on your face. Seriously though, a lot of the challenge modes are pretty cool ways to handle combat in similar scenarios but with different circumstances. Modes like katana only and throwing only are my personal favorites, making the levels challenging but fun and not necessarily repetitive. Now, let's talk about no restart. No restart is the worst part of this game easily, in my opinion. It's easier than the other challenges in theory, since there's nothing holding you back, but my god, some of the bullshit you realize in this game while doing this is insane. This mode is largely where I discovered most of the mechanics in the game that I mentioned previously that aren't explained to the player anywhere else. For example, your hitbox changes when you turn sideways, allowing you to dodge certain bullets and, most importantly, shotgun rounds. Or like the fact that jumping on enemies kills them in one hit from pretty much any height, including just off the ground. It was fun for a while to mess around and try to do these levels correctly, but then just the game starts to get to you, man. It makes you feel like enduring some other kind of torture, like watching a show with more than 900 episodes from the start.
Yo, is that Goku?
The number of times I would play through a level just to find myself blindsided by an extra enemy that I was sure didn't exist, or that was holding a different weapon than before, showed me that this game employs the use of RNG, which is so surprising for an action shooty. It would be fine otherwise, but I found myself frustrated by the lack of a clear science for some of these levels. For example, I used to consider this elevator level you're seeing one of the hardest in the game on my first runs of it. But after playing it a lot, you realize that there are no variables that can screw you over. There are always 3 enemies in the elevator and 2 right outside. Reliability is more important in a game like this, and even if I can slow time, I still can't swat away those bullets lodged in the back of my skull. As of recording this, I still haven't beaten No Restart, only making it through 20 of the 25 levels. However, that's not to say that this mode ruins the game or anything. I still love the challenges, and specifically this one, and I do wish to finish it someday. I just couldn't bring myself to do it by the time I wanted this video to come out. Now, let's talk about Endless Mode. I didn't play it, but it is more than just an Endless Mode. You unlock various stages and things rather than it just being one level with infinite enemy spawns, which is a pretty nice take on it. I'm looking at you, Mario Kart 8 Battle Mode, just add some extra maps, please God. And yeah, that about sums up Superhot. Overall, one of my favorite gaming experiences recently. It's short, sweet, and to the point, having some challenge while being casual enough for baby gamers to get their feet wet in the story and decide if they want more or not. I highly recommend this game, and I had a fun time working on this video. Sorry this came out so late, I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll get working on that next one real soon. If you have any suggestions for these videos that would make them better, or perhaps more entertaining, or maybe even another game to add to the list, please let me know in the comments down below the video. And remember, stay frosty.